Welcome back to the Artie Lange Show. So again, I'm real excited for our first guest, former Eagle, wrote Hotel California. That's all you really need to know, but a bunch of other things. Just a really talented guy, Don Felder. What's up, man?
It's great to be back in New York. I haven't seen you since the Stern Show years ago,
That's
man.
Right. You came into Howard's show, and Howard did a great interview with you as always, and we played Hotel California.
We did. You sang on the chorus with me.
That was fun. I mean, it was a blast because that was one of those things. I got to sing "You Shook Me All Night Long" with AC/DC and Angus Young once, but I'll give Hotel California with you #1 because it's one of my favorite songs of all time.
Oh, that's great. So much fun to do that.
Yeah, it was a blast. So now, this History of the Eagles just came out. Okay, and I've seen it about 7 times.
Oh,
I'm
yeah?
just fascinated.
You have my deepest sympathies.
I'm going to say now, just real quick, I mean, obviously I've got a million questions. Are you happy with how that came out?
Yeah, sure. You know, I think it was an honor to be invited to be part of that filming at this point.
How could you not be? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, that was my sentiment exactly. When they asked me to do it, I said, sure. I was, part of that band for 27 years. I should be part of the documentary as well. So I went in. I wasn't really certain how they were going to edit it because I didn't have any control over the final editing. But it turned out great. It was really great to look back and see how skinny we were. I mean, I was a 29-inch waist. I'm a 31-inch waist now.
Yeah,
but
you're
I was
in
a
great shape now.
29-inch
fine.
waist. And, my hair was down to here.
You had the long hair.
Beard and everything.
The early 70s, man. What are you going to do?
And I saw it right after I watched the Super Bowl with Beyonce, who came out with fireworks coming out of the end of the guitars and dancing, choreography. Yeah. And then I saw that documentary, and we were just like ripped jeans and T-shirts and football
You're just sitting
jerseys.
there being insanely talented.
Yeah, and just playing and singing music
which is what it should be.
Yeah.
But ironically enough, to me, the guy who and again, I'm a fan of the Eagles, and I love Don Henley, and I love Glenn Frey, and I love Joe Walsh. I'm actually friendly with Joe.
Yeah.
But are you still friendly with Joe? Is he a guy you still talk to?
Yeah,
right?
well, indirectly.
It's hard to be enemies with a guy like that, it seems, right?
I love Joe to death. He's a great player, great friend. We spent years together in that band. Spent many nights without sleep together in that
I'm
band.
Sure,
when I do with these radio interviews, I'll go into a city, and Joe had a record out earlier last year,
right?
And he'll have done an interview and left a question for me that they'll play.
Oh, really?
Answer Joe's question. So now when I go to interviews, I leave a question for Joe. So the next time he comes back.
Well, you guys, they pointed out Bill Simzik, the second producer you guys work with, points out in the documentary that you guys were probably the best guitar team in a group maybe ever because of how well you worked off of each other.
Yeah, that was really the key to those records is Joe and I went out and did some shows together before he joined the Eagles. He did a TV show called Joe Walsh and Friends, and we put together a band and went and played, I think, opened for Elton John at Dodger Stadium. We'd worked together enough to know when to step back and let one guy play and then him to step back and let just take turns kind of doing the dance together. And it worked so well that when his name came up for a member to join the band, I was really excited about it because I love to play with Joe.
Well, so that brings us back to the beginning here. You're not an original member of the Eagles, but you were friends with the original guitarist, Bernie Leadon. Is that, according to the documentary, you were friendly with him, and they invited you one night to just jam with the band or something. And Glenn Frey and Henley were so impressed by you that the next day they asked you to join the band, right? I mean, is that what happened?
That's pretty close. Bernie and I had a band in high school together when we were 16 years old. He actually replaced Stephen Stills, who was in that original band called
so
the
you go back
Continentals.
to teenage years with Bernie. Yeah, okay.
Bernie and I went to high school together, and he actually picked me up at the Greyhound bus stop when I was coming back from a solo gig by myself. I was 15. I didn't have a car, and he found out from my mom where I was and came and picked me up at the bus stop and came into my house and played this unbelievable bluegrass guitar. He didn't even own an electric guitar, and I didn't own an acoustic guitar. I had like a Strat, right? So we went to the music store, and he bought an electric guitar, and I bought a flat-top guitar, and we had 2 bands. We had kind of a country music bluegrass band during the week, and on the weekend, we had this band called the Monty Quintet, which we made a record in the South and kind of toured around and did local gigs around Florida, Georgia, Alabama, and that area. Then Bernie finally, after he graduated from high school, moved back to L.A., and I wound up moving here to New York. And we stayed in touch through the course of all his bands. He was in the Flying Burrito Band Brothers. I was in a band called Flow. We played the Fillmore East here and a bunch of different things. And then when he joined the Eagles, when they came through Boston, I was living in Boston doing their first tour.
Oh,
and I went down to see my friend Bernie. He was in this band playing, I think they were opening for Yes or something.
Wow.
Which was an odd combination.
Definitely.
So then I went backstage and we just started playing together like we had already played backstage. And I had seen him 3 or 4 times on the road and met Don and Glenn. Finally, he convinced me to move from Boston to California. So I packed up all my belongings in a U-Haul trailer and drove this old Volvo from Boston all the way to California. Got there, slept on Bernie's floor.
Man.
You know, starving, no money, you know, just a starving musician. And wound up working with Crosby Nash.
Wow, that's not bad.
Was my first gig when I got to LA. Well, my second gig. I worked with a guy named David Blue first, who was from New York, as a matter of fact. And so I had been around Bernie playing, jamming, going down to their rehearsals, sound checks, and stuff like that, just hanging out with my friends. And then they called me to play slide on this one song on the Border called "Good Day in Hell."
Right.
So I went in, carried my guitar in, plugged it in, played slide guitar for about an hour with the band, and went home. Said, okay, see you guys later, like any other jam session we had played on. And I got a call the next day from Glenn asking me to join the band. So I was actually married at the time, and my wife was pregnant with our first kid.
Oh, God.
And I was playing with Crosby Nash. I was making $1,500 a week, and in like 1974, that was
a lot of money. And you're doing what you love. You're doing what you love.
I got a kid on the way.
Yeah, life getting complicated.
That's right. And so Bernie had told me, and I'd been around the band enough to know how turbulent it was, how much turmoil and stress and
At that
arguing.
point already there was.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It was like having 4 frontmen in the same band. You know, everybody wanted to sing and be front the band and have their songs on the record.
Joe says in the documentary you were all sort of alpha and you just wouldn't let it go.
That's right. Everybody. It was like having 5 A-plus personalities.
5 Mick Jaggers.
Yeah, that's right. Everybody could write, sing, and play and had fronted their own band in the past. And all of a sudden, there was an incredible amount of talent together in that band, but there was a struggle for what songs were going to go on the record, what lyrics were going to go on the record, who was going to sing one thing.
What made the band so great gave it its problems.
That's right, exactly. An overabundance of both talent and egos.
No, exactly. But listen, it worked because, you know, I mean, ironically enough, the guy, and he probably had the most control over the documentary, the guy who comes off as the nuttiest is Glenn Frey. Because at some point, you know, and I don't want to open up any old wounds here, I'm just talking as a fan. At one point, the documentary's flowing fine and everything, and at one point, Glenn Frey just starts firing everybody. Like, it starts with Bernie, then goes to Randy, then you.
Yep.
And at some point, the documentary becomes Glenn Frey going, you know what? And then we said, why don't you just quit? And with 3 guys in a row, and he seems like, for all his talents, and he's clearly a brilliant guy, him and Don Henley, I mean, they just come off as real big egomaniacs, you know.
Well, I didn't have anything to do with that.
No, I know. Talented as hell, but really just
unbelievably talented. You know, I admire both those guys immensely. I think Henley's probably one of the best rock and roll singers in the business today.
Unbelievable.
And the two of those guys together, to me, were like the Lennon and McCartney of America.
You can make that
so
argument.
many great songs. You know? And so I have no ill feelings or hardships about those guys at all. I respect the hell out of them, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, it's just, to me, I don't know why. Again, I guess Glenn Frey just had this anger, I guess, that became about money, because he said in '94 in the documentary, he says he went to, you know, lawyers and said, look, I want to me and Don should make more money than the other guys. And I guess forgetting that you guys had formed a partnership in the '70s where, you know, you weren't a guy you could just fire. You weren't some hired guitar guy. You're a partner in the band. And to me, that era of Hotel California, and Joe Walsh says in the documentary, what a creative time. If Glenn Frey could have just got it together, I think you guys could have made albums into, like, the idea of you sitting on your couch and just sending in music, creating music, which is how Hotel California came about. He almost sounds like he resented it, Glenn Frey. He goes, he said, you know, Don Felder would send us music, and we'd have to listen to him. He sounded like a chore. And it's like, well, you're being nice. I mean, that's a work ethic that a lot of bands probably don't have. While you're not touring or in the studio, you're working your ass off. You send in music on cassettes. You make the cassettes. That's how Hotel California came about. They could fill in these great lyrics, and all you wanted in return after a while was you wanted to sing a tune that you came up with,
That's
Victim of
correct.
Love. And what I love about you in the documentary is you're very honest. You're like, look, if they wanted Don Henley to sing it, who can argue with that?
That's right.
No
I
one can
agree.
argue with it. You know?
I agree.
But you were sort of promised a song and change it up a little bit, and you can sing and explain how sort of disappointing that was. Was that kind of what was the last straw with you, maybe? Not getting this. The song was "Victim of Love."
The song was "Victim
which
of Love,"
you also wrote the riff for.
Yeah, I wrote the whole music track for it. Gave him a complete demo, along with about 15 or 16 other songs. I thought, more music for that band than anybody else in the band.
It seems like it.
Bernie told me to write music beds that Don and Glenn could write lyrics and sing over. So that's how he wound up writing "Witchy Woman" with those guys and all the songs that he had written with Don and Glenn. He said, write basic tracks and let them sing on top of it, come up with a melody. So I'd written not only the basic track for "Victim of Love," but the melody for it as well.
See, in the documentary, Henley says there was no melody, and you know,
I had different words for it, and they didn't like the lyrics, and so okay, let's rewrite the lyrics. So we sat down with J.D. Souther, who's a great writer,
great songwriter,
myself, Don, and Glenn on a writing session, and came up with the idea of "Victim of Love" for a song title. I think J.D. actually came up with that.
Right.
So it was supposed to be a song that I was going to sing on the record. We got in the studio, we cut the track, great track. It was one of the few tracks that everything on that record was done live. We just 5 guys playing and played it live, solos, everything was just done live. Usually there were always overdubs and, you know, piece by piece putting stuff together. It was just a live track.
Made the producer's job kind of easy in the sense that, not to take away his talents, but like Joe Walsh said, like, he hit record and you guys were playing. You know? Right.
Well, if you look on the Hotel California album, Bill Simzik used to etch into the band between the last song and the part of the record where it picks up the needle and starts over.
Right.
He would scribe something in there, and he inscribed on the B side of Hotel California, VOL is 5-piece live. So if you look at it, you can see it scribbled.
Victim of Love is right.
5-piece live. So we recorded the song, and
with you singing.
No, not singing. There was no vocals. It was just the track.
Oh, just the track.
Guitars and instruments and stuff. And then we got into Miami, and we'd been working on the lyrics, and they set up a mic one night for me to sing. I'd had about a half a bottle of wine. I went out and tried to sing it, and I just finally, after 3 or 4 takes, said, hey, let's do this tomorrow when I'm clean and sober, and, you know, I can make a good attack at it. The next day didn't come. I went out to dinner with Irving, and
your manager.
That night, while I was out at dinner, Henley went in the studio and sang it.
Pretty devious.
Yeah. So then I was told by Irving that night at the end of the dinner that Don was going to sing the song. And I got really upset because I'd sort of been promised that was going to be the song that I was going to sing on the record. And then after I'd kind of cooled down from my initial anger, I realized, who can sing any song better than
right, but in
Henley?
a way, that's not what it was about. It was kind of like, you know, something that, you know, you guys as a band, you're going to change it up a little bit.
Sure,
you know,
that's right.
and you're not a guy who can sing. You wanted to sing the song that you were promised.
Yeah.
And probably deserved. You put a lot of work in it. And something else that's odd about the documentary, you could tell when Henley is annoyed with somebody. Like, he uses their last, he talks like a lawyer. He goes, we let Mr. Felder sing the song. And it just did not come up to band standards. Yeah. And he talking about, and then Mr. Geffen sued me for $30 million. He gets Mr. stuff going. He becomes formal.
Right.
It just seems odd.
Yeah.